Welcome to another
There we go.
episode of Exploring the Vintage NFT Space podcast with Zero G. Today, I'm excited to have with me Pepecashmillionaire AKA Marty. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi, how's it going? I'm Marty, also known as Pepecashmillionaire, the artist. There you go. Sure.
Yeah, thanks for joining me today. We've got quite a bit of stuff to cover, but I thought what we'd start out with is why don't you tell me the story about how you heard about crypto, and then what motivated you to actually make the leap to make your first purchase?
Sure. So I think for me, the story of crypto is always these hit and misses where I first got introduced to it by just observing it on a secondary screen of a coworker while I was making a trip. This is in the Canadian prairies. Making a trip to Winnipeg. I was working in Regina at the time, and I was asking this guy, like, what's all this stuff scrolling on the second screen? It looks like Linux. I'm like, I like that. I'm into that. This is when Bitcoin was like $6. And he says, this is Bitcoin. I'm mining it at home. I'm like, okay, what's that? Blah, blah, blah. He tells me all about it. I'm like, how much is it? It's $6. Wow, that's cool. Like, that sounds cool. That sounds really awesome. But like, it just sounds like a small market cap. Like, I'm not sure about this stuff. So I kind of just like found out about it, whatever. So yeah, I think this would be, geez, back in like what, 2012, 2011 type days, right? Where it would have been $6.
Yeah, that's about the time
I
it'd
think
be
that's,
about that price.
yeah. So that's when I first heard about it and just kind of had like a glancing, passing by. So that just shows you that even in Canada, I guess I knew a geeky enough. Now this guy was really something. He had gone to Japan. He studied samurai swords. So if there's anybody in any office anywhere that's going to know about Bitcoin mining and be doing it at home, it's going to be probably the samurai aficionado in the high tech office, right? So that was cool. But I think later on, I run into something called, just kind of like a trader room. And this is back in 2013. Yeah, 2013, heading into 14 now, where Bitcoin's already done its pump, and now it's just dumping and dumping and dumping for like 3 years straight. That's kind of when I made my swoop. And it's so sad because I actually swept in around the 200s where it kind of bottomed out. It started going back up a little bit. Went in heavy. I think I had like almost 40 Bitcoin at the peak of my low-end career there, which is only like 10, 15 grand or whatever at that time. But geez, yeah, that would have been a nice hold. And then on the way up, I just got into all these chat rooms with people that were gambling and going on OP coin and just doing leverage. And I got so infected that I literally gambled everything that I did and ended up cashing out on the way up because I
Oh
was just
no.
doing high leverage DJ. I know. And then like this margin calls and all this stuff. So, and then later it gets revealed that there was a lot of insider trading and like a lot of these moves were often just the platform moving against its own users and stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's like the modern
But
day
like,
bucket shop. Yeah, it's yeah, just the
mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've been hunting where like the entire move only moved like it's weird. Yeah, like on the way up, like I was used to just go long, but like I get stuff hunted out short, like things would go down. Within like just dollars of my entries in like a safe trading range, and then things would just go all the way back up. And I'm like, holy shit. It's almost as if the exchange is hunting me. But it's like that's paranoid to say that. But like, I think
that's
the actual
exactly
work.
what they're doing. Hell yeah, they
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
I mean, they have the like, there's all these exchanges have their own proprietary prop trading firms where like FTX had Alameda, where again they have the ability to see the order book. How are you not going to make money when you can hunt stops, and then you know it's just, yeah, it's crazy, it's criminal, but hey, it is what it is.
Water under the criminal's bridge. So like, and
Yeah,
now,
yeah,
now
I
they're
mean,
getting exposed for stuff that they can't undo, which is more like the truth lab stuff, which is just prints on Ethereum of like that history. So like it all comes around, right? Where they yeah.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So you got in pretty early and started playing around with trading and whatnot. um
And
you
this is
know
what
so,
led me to get into rare Pepes because I got so wrecked. I'm like, fuck all this shit going, fuck all this gambling, fuck all this garbage. What can I buy like a property and just hold? Get it? That was the motivation.
Oh, cool. And so how did you hear about Counterparty first? Was it from one of these trading chat rooms or something?
I was in the chat rooms and I was just listening to people do all this stuff. In the summer, they happened and they came and went. I got in one little competition where I actually won a bunch of Square Pepe cards by just hacking into the, not so much hacking, the code was posted, but nobody understood that you had to top up the wallet with some Bitcoin just to move the counterparty. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A guy that used to write, yeah, a guy that used to write for, I think it was Cointelegraph, was in his Coin Run. He got gifted a whole bunch of this wallet stuff that he didn't want because it was just like, the fall. He's like, I'm done with this. I'm done with my conventions and the Bitcoin stuff. Who wants this stuff? He posted the key, the private key, in a public chat. Some people jumped on it, but they didn't know how to move it out. Somebody locked up the wallet by trying to do a bunch of transactions with no money in it and shit. So I like monitored that for a day or two, and then like a few days later, 2 or 3 days later, the junk transactions dropped off the mempool, and I'm like, that's it. That's the shitty thing. Somebody else was monitoring that. So after I sent some Bitcoin and there's a movement, I got some moving, and somebody else started moving the assets. And I was like, fuck, it's a race. And I'm like, fuck. So like, I topped it up a bit more. I said that like the high value cards, he got some low value cards with higher issuance. I'm like, I think I got you on those. Like he went for, get it? Like I went high, he went low. The value, like he went for the high, yeah, there's some junk cards with a lot of the card, but it wouldn't really
Yeah.
much, right? Whatever. Like I think, yeah, or and then I'm like, okay. And then I wish I never did that because now I'm hooked. Now I'm like, oh my god, like it's hoarding, it's fighting over assets. It's like two rat moles encounter each other in like a dark den underground and can just feel that they're each the other one is stealing whatever is being hidden underground by the other one, right? And it's just a matter of hoarding and grabbing and shit. It's just like, it's like the most addictive degen shit ever.
Well,
And then
that's
I got hooked on Testnet Pepe, where I bought like a million Testnet Pepe, and then I'm like, oh my god, you can buy a million Testnet Pepe? Okay, can I buy 10 million? And like I somehow got 10 million. Except a Bitcoin on it. So I'm like, oh, that's it. I must have it. And just, like I literally started chatting with the developer of it, like the guy who made it and shit. Got him to eventually send me like the asset for like whatever amount, and I'm like, oh my god! And I think I have the asset issuance right as well. So like, that just proves you can have like an addiction start. Okay, where in the world can you like get addicted to cocaine and then like it so much that like the producers and everybody just falls in line into your pocket, where eventually you own more than half of the production and supply of the cocaine in the world just because you got hooked a little bit. Like that's not even realistic, but like that was me and Testnet Pepe. Like, oh, and then the fucking Estonian mafia notices that I listed it for some weird amount in the wallet because I tried to list it for $1 trillion and it rolled around. I have the screenshot showing it. I clicked it for sale for $1 trillion in Rare Pepe wallet, but it rolled around on the back end. It just turned to pennies. But then they bought it and started messaging me that they have it and like to buy it back. I'm like, I'm not being held for ransom. I'm not negotiating with terrorists, with Rare Pepe terrorists from Estonia. Holy fuck. So yeah, but funny enough, I think I used to have 60% or 50%, whatever it is. So now I have 10%, and they have either 40% or 50%. I think they have 50%. But so yeah, 50% of Testnet Pepe is controlled by the Estonian mafia, like some forklift warehouse operator that's basically a mafia guy. He's got half of Testnet Pepe now, and I have the asset issuance in 10%. Isn't that sad?
that's a wild story. Well,
Yeah, like
so
yeah.
you when you got in there, so did like you were just telling us how you kind of fell in love with testnet Pepe and kind of went like all in on that. Like, did you create your like Pepe grade first, or how did the time
Well,
like
no, no.
when
I
you
mean, all of these assets are issued are assets that I couldn't draw a stick man, so all of these assets are purchases that I acquired off artists and through them,
oh,
like
okay.
in the day.
Okay, so you bought already existing rare Pepes, you bought the assets from them.
Yeah, because it was like a doldrum where literally there was like the high run in the summer and fall when they made them, and then in the winter it was kind of like people were like, I need to eat, and I'm like, well, I'll buy like 3 of your Pepes for a Bitcoin, and people were like, yeah.
Oh, that's wild. So you just like so you didn't particularly like how did you choose like Pepe Grave and Pepe Gold Bar and Pepe Tip was that
Because one guy made like all three. I think one guy made Pepe Tip, Pepe Gold Bar, and Pepe Pure or Pepe Gray. One guy made all three of those.
okay?
And yeah, and then I got the asset rights transferred. And then the rest, I was going around in the Telegram chats, I was going around the auction house, and I was just like snapping shit up. And I think pretty much any monopoly, it's safe to say that would have been over a chat, not like just buying 5-10% of an asset, right? Yeah. So anything that has passive and the asset issuance right, that's pretty much just like, how sad is that? A 30-year-old man decides to give up kayaking and kiteboarding time in order to corner the rare Pepe asset right market as a new like entrant.
Well, and what a wild world that counterparty and crypto is, where like you can like this is the type of stuff that they would do in like one of those like MMO games, like what is it? It's not Everspace, but that one where they nerd out with like the different factions, and they have money and like all that kind of stuff, corporations and everything. Um I mean, you're able to do this kind of stuff in real life with you know uh, rare Pepes.
In unexpected circumstances while living off the proceeds. And then the craziest thing was the night I bid some. Remember, I told you there was a guy a long time ago. I told you where a guy decided to buy using a robot 5% of every card, but he fucked up and he didn't put a ceiling price. So I had been listing as a joke, like a hopeful joke, cards that I was buying for one or a half or whatever for instead of 5 or 10. I was listing it for 50 or fucking 42 or 60 or fucking 100. And this fucking robot, because this guy was rich, I'll fucking like Bitcoin million, he fucking would bid and buy that shit until he had 5%. So like I cleaned up back in like 2017 or whatever. While I was in a forest with like kayak in a bed, just like sleeping in the back of a forest, fucking just like chilling. All these orders come in. I'm like, are you fucking shitting me? Like 1,500 American while I'm sitting in a Canadian forest and you exchange it, so it's 1.3. But that's like almost $2,000 for peppers. And I'm like, are you shitting me? Like, I'm fucking what? And then I'm like, okay, let's like, and then I'm like, cancel all the low prices. Let's jack them up. And then he wouldn't buy some of them because it was too much money. And I'm like, I've reached the point where the robot finally like made sense, and this is too pricey. And I'm like, but get it how hilarious that was. And everybody else was a cock. And I gotta say it, like, get it? Everybody's banning me from the chat and calling me crazy, and yet I'm the one who sees the potential in these fucking ceilings and actualizes it, right? And then I was bragging about it in tweets and shit. It was awesome.
That's funny.
It's really
So
sad. Yeah. I lost
yeah, I
the
mean
back
it.
over too, but I have so many screenshots. So many screenshots.
I mean that's so did you like so you were basically amassing these different, trying to go out and shark and get these different assets and cards and whatnot. So were you building for a long-term position, or were you just trying to flip back then?
Yeah. That was the whole. I was playing Monopoly.
Hmm.
Monopoly, right? I'm like, listen, I'm done getting chopped up. I'm done entering and exiting trades. I want to buy shit where it's fucking Broadway Avenue. It's fucking it's Broadway, right? It's freaking it's the blue properties at the end, right? It's the fancy hotels, and then you just upgrade them, right? I do my graphic reboot, I upgrade them, right? And then off we go. Whoop-de-doop, right? Like that's it. And now you give me your ordinals. You give me your $1 million ordinals. It was such a simple plan, but everyone just like cucked out and they went for Peperium. I'm kidding. Right? Yeah, no, this was. I know. Like everyone went on ETH, and then ETH turned out to be a scam, and they don't care. Everyone went apes, and apes are just like some moon pay fucking money laundering. They don't care. Everyone's just a fucking donkey with a carrot in front of their nose, and then they're happy. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess since you brought up Peperium, I wanted to like get your take, because like one of the cards that you own, the Pepe Gold Bar. I don't know if you owned it at the time that Peperium was launching, but like Pepe Gold Bar
I
also
bought that
exists.
pretty early, and they chatted with me about my cards, and I'm like, "Yo, bro, like, whatever's going on here, like, what the hell, man?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, well, we'll this and blah blah blah," and then silence, and then I'm like, "Okay," and then people are like, "Yo, Gold Bar, Peperium." I'm like, "Huh?" Oh,
Well, how did you hear about Peperium and how like what
in
was
the
your
chat.
interaction
They were
with?
they were active in the chat. Yeah,
Oh,
they were
okay.
active in the chat at the time. Yeah, they were chatting. But it's like, well, not in the right way. Like they engaged, they did message even, and then you just like, everybody gave them shit, and they just went, oh. If we keep chatting with everyone, we're just gonna hear the same thing. Nobody wants us to do it unless they do it like in the right way. Blah blah blah. And then they were gonna do, dude. They said so many things. We're gonna burn them. We're not gonna burn them. We're gonna do this. Well, how many did they burn? None. So why? How come they issued whatever? Get it? Like whatever, right? Like,
I mean, from what I've been able to gather, I mean, it never really got off the ground in a formal sense. Yeah, like assets were created and they created like the two different versions of Rare Token, but outside of basically a handful of people, like it didn't really. I mean, and again, it was early in Ethereum too, but it was relatively unknown and like I don't think it really,
hmm.
you know, it didn't go very far, put it that way.
Well, funny enough, even I'll argue that it went further in its unsuccess or its undelivery than actually could have or would have gone in its Ethereum delivery, because even at the time when it was just being talked about, I remember the amount of energy that it sucked and the contention that it caused in the chat, right? So then in people's mind space was huge because one, it wasn't on Bitcoin. Two, it was just such a hokey, cloney kind of like, but then new cars, it just, there was such a looseness to it, right? People were objecting to the looseness. Like, wait, so you're taking some cards? I think the way they present it is like you can make new cards, right? Or we'll transfer your cards, or you can burn your cards. It's like it was all half baked in the chat,
Well,
right? So then everybody was so angry about that because it was so half baked, and then they launched whatever, and like it didn't even matter what they launched. They didn't even stick around to support it. So like it was a dud. It was like stillborn. But the chats about it were kind of insane, dude. Like if there's anything I remember of being of contention, it's not people's cards being turned down by the rear scientists. It's not people getting banned off chats. It's not the price going to up or down. It's actually Peperium threatening to copy clone cards. Yo, they were gonna copy all the cards, and everyone gave them so much shit that they didn't, bro. I'm
so
pretty
they were just going to
sure.
copy the
I'm
entire
pretty
they were just going to copy the entire
Yeah,
directory.
yeah, exactly. And then the mere fact that I chatted with them for a split second about any details about Pepe Gold Bar, now when they ended the chat without any real agreement or anything, that was enough license. Now we're like, okay, well, we chatted with this guy about Pepe Gold Bar. We're issuing it. Like, really? Wow. Get it? Like, wow. And then
Yeah.
and then I guess I gave them stink. So then they didn't copy anymore either. Oh
Yep.
man, like
Well,
yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
mean,
So like
I remember being really confused when
yeah,
I started researching Peperium because I found their Telegram and I found their website. Then like on their website, they had like the whole
oh, what?
notion, like the vision that they had was that you would like
Hmm?
the equivalent of Pepe Cash would be Rare Token, and you could only use Rare
Okay,
Token to buy these different cards. But then when I
okay,
started searching, like I couldn't figure out how to get Rare Token, and then I kept looking
right.
and like no, like they never got that working. Like you couldn't actually use Rare unless you were doing OTC. Like there
Correct.
wasn't a way to buy and sell
I
using Rare
knew it.
Token.
I knew they were half baked. They tried to get something. They were pissed off that they missed out or didn't have as much Pepe Cash as they wanted. So rather than even cloning Pepe Cash or whatever, dude, they were just gonna reissue Pepe Cash, but recall it a different name and then fucking redistribute it to their buddies. It's like it's so simple, right? Like if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean
Like
that seems
because
to
they
be the
always send
model
us,
that they were going with. I don't know how they like.
yeah.
I don't
Well,
know
then
if
they
they were
have the
supposed.
sign up. Then you have a white list. Then you have the address list. Then you can pre-buy your way up the list. And then when they drop the amount that they made, the percentages get split up based upon how much cost you sucked, how much money you gave, how early you were, and all this stuff. And then you get another drop of this Keck token instead of the Pepecash. And now, boom, we just rebooted the whole, redistribution. But then, yeah, unless you have hundreds, like literally more than 100 or 200 people that get excited about this at the start, and they only had about a dozen people who were pissed off enough with the original. See, it was a project driven by hate. So once the original dozen people that were driving it, and I bet you some guys with some bags that had my, oh fuck, I'm hiccuping. That's good. It's appropriate. I bet you some guy that had some bags that actually did make some money funded a lot of that troublemaking, right? So that a lot of the guys in Peperium were actually doing the bidding of some men. Now that I think about it, it makes perfect sense why they just died off, because that guy would have stopped funding it when he saw it wasn't gaining social momentum. Get it? It wasn't gaining
Yeah,
social momentum. So then the
yeah,
guy is just like, they had no conviction in it, so they just fucked off. And that's why they didn't have any guns, because they tried to do too much, because the guy's like, okay, I'm going to pay you guys if you do too much. And then it's like everyone's screaming, and he's like, oh, fuck, we can't do that much. Like, oh, fuck, right? So they scale it down, and then they just quit. It's like, what? Like, no
yeah. It's
conviction? Sounds like a little bit of a, yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's a little bit
Blah,
disappointing
blah,
too, in the sense that like they have, again, there's not a ton of cards in Peperium. It's they only got to 2 seasons, and
I was
um
surprised when you told me there's so few. I was surprised that they
yeah,
actually
very
made that few because they were talking so much. Oh my fuck, right? They made such a stink. So then for them to only drop so few cards, it's like, that's what I'm saying. The prenup was so much worse than the breakup. Like they
yeah.
talked so much shit before they actually delivered nothing. So it's funny.
Yeah, I mean, like the other thing that I thought was sad about it is that so there's only like 2 seasons, and most of the cards are well, there's several cards that there's been no distribution, where essentially the cards are still locked in someone's
They
wallet that hasn't
hoarded
moved.
it. What
Yeah,
the fuck? That's so whack.
I mean, and
Dude,
there's
this
there's
whole
some
thing
cards that
is
have
so whack.
I mean, there's cards that have great art too. Like Pepe Zeus, I suspect is a Memento art. I think Memento did the art for a couple of those pieces. Um, so like Pepe
So
Zeus
some
is really
artists
cool.
would have believed in it. Yeah, some artists would have been sold on the project. They would have believed in it, right? Would have actually got full. They would have put their weight behind it, right? You would have made a custom, really well thought out,
Yeah, I
well
mean
art
there
card.
yeah, some artists actually produce some cool stuff that was published there. But yeah, again, it just never really like you're saying, like for in a lot of different ways, the project never got off the ground. Like one, it sounds like they never, I don't know, they never baked the whole idea of the rare token, and like the distribution method for like creating contracts where you could redeem the cards for, I don't know, all that stuff just kind of seemed like they were over their head or something, right? So, but anyway, yeah, there's some
Look,
cool art, and there's
you
some low
shouldn't
issue.
complain about people that are rich for a minute and have a whole bunch of drugs in their system, and just do stuff. Okay, we'll figure it out. Dude, a lot
Well,
of people were so hot. So
well,
high. And this just feels like one of those things.
well, it's. I mean, even though it failed in the marketplace and didn't really like take off, it is notable in the sense that, as far as I'm aware, that's the first.
I love it.
Peperium is still like the first project, like art project, that we would normally classify as on Ethereum. So it is notable for that. And like I said, it has some
Dude,
cool art.
I love it for its psychological warfare effect on the rare Pepe community. It was the first thing where you could just talk about something that doesn't exist, that never ended up existing in the way it was talked about. And pretty much everyone in the Telegram, one way or the other, for or against it, lost their shit. Because some people didn't have much luck with sales. So then they're like, you know what? Fuck all you old school Rare Pepe guys who are getting the sales and have your cards distributed. Sure, go ahead, copy all my cards, Peperium or not, right? What do I have to lose? So like some people were for it, some people like the ones who were OGs in Rare Pepper were probably against it. Some were sellouts, so they were for it again. And like, yeah, it was the ball, it was the nuclear bomb that got dropped in the Rare Pepper Telegram. I kid you not. Look, I have a good memory, like a fucking elephant. Nothing else before or after Peperium got dropped in the Telegram in such a way that caused literally a nuclear blast. Where before it was nothing, and then boom, just like fucking body steering and shit, and just like yeah, just like literally skeletons and bones separating from flesh in the fucking Telegram for weeks on end, if not months, however long the chat lasted. Like it was fuck. It was yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean,
So
so
yeah, so I think it's worth mentioning for that effect that it was like a very psychologically schismic thing, regardless of whether it actually got on chain very much with art was good or not. Like it,
yeah,
it demonstrated what happens when you have a clan that's very core Bitcoin, core pro art on Bitcoin and whatever it is, and then somebody comes in with an off chain. Because at that point, Ethereum wasn't tested or true. It didn't have the connotations it does now. It wasn't DeFi. It wasn't anything. It was just not Bitcoin, right? It was honestly just not Bitcoin. It could have been
yeah.
Solana. Maybe it's going to be Solana, but it could have been Litecoin. Could have been Litecoin. Could have been whatever. Could have been Litecoin Pepes. But the whole idea of off Bitcoin chain Pepes and cloning and that's the nuke. So, dude, in the future, it's always going to be the nuke,
I
right?
mean,
Like this is where the psychology breaks for people, where you're jumping chains and jumping chains and copying the art is forever going to be the nuclear mental fucking lose your freak shit, no matter what the devs say. That's what I think it identifies.
I
That's
mean,
what it identifies.
I mean, I remember the kind of like, I was around. I didn't hang out in chats or anything, but I was around the scene back, not in Counterparty, but just in crypto. And I remember kind of like a lot of people were pretty hostile to Ethereum, also for the reason that, yeah, it had all these like really cool like capabilities, but there wasn't a real world use case or app yet for it, right? I mean, like ironically, you could say that that art ended up being like it's not this like killer app really, in the long run. They had their DeFi, like DeFi and all that other stuff, but like none of that really scales sufficiently to have like the big like to match the ambition yet. Like maybe they'll do that on L2s or something, but anyway, I just remember that was kind of like which I thought was valid at the time is that yeah, like this has a lot of capability, but yeah, like you know, it hasn't actually like no one's actually done anything with it yet. So, you know,
Hmm.
and it was also people joking about it being, a scam chain too, like Ethereum and meth heads, right? So
uh, yeah,
but oh
at least some things turned out to be true. At least that's a real deliverable on Ethereum. Well,
yeah, I mean, even if I mean, the jury's still out to see like how it plays out in crypto with these different like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, all these other things. Whether or not Ethereum ends up being like, the one or like the King Kong or number two or three or five or whatever. Like even if it doesn't end up being a dominant chain long term, the like it certainly changed a lot of people's attitudes, mine included, over time is in terms of like the capabilities and the importance of having these smart contract systems, and extending the usefulness beyond just simple payments, right? So, I mean, it definitely did make a big impact.
I still talk to artists in Africa who are getting paid in Bitcoin. I'm trying to deal people in, or basically like if I have to move some coin and I needed to go through an exchange if I don't have a KYC or something. Dude, I try to give like a 5% cut to somebody that tells me that's like multi months rent after the deal's done, and I'm like, well, I'm glad that you didn't rip me out. For like multiple years of it. But it's like, how sad is that I trust more somebody literally who's getting accounts canceled or not because they're spamming their art on freaking Twitter from like, fucking Kenya or something, I trust that person more to like do some, just like move some money around for me than probably any guy in the West that I know, right? Like, that's kind of
Yeah.
bad. I find that.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, so I mean, I guess the kind of controversy died out with about Peperium like over time since they never like again it never got off the ground, right? What was kind of the like what was your involvement with CryptoPepes and what was the reaction around that? Was that similar in terms of
Okay, so again, yeah, they would have come into the chat and then I went in their Telegram and just memed my face on. That's all it was about. You put the stickers in, you put the chats in, woo woo, blah blah, and then the mining. I think I had a rig or something, bro. I think I was
yeah.
mining that shit. Yeah, yo, bro, I have like a full CPAP and all this shit and all that. Yeah, cause how else did I get airdrop 12 characters and one in my name?
Yeah,
Right? Like,
I mean, I was
yeah,
with
yeah,
you.
yeah. Oh,
I came
yeah.
across it from the Bitcoin Talk announcements. I wasn't part of these Rare
Oh
Pepe or
no, they
counterparty
were in the
chats.
Telegram. Yeah, yo, this is the funniest thing. I never went on Bitcoin Talk.
Oh, okay.
Never, ever. I just never went. It's so I should have, I could have, but I didn't. Which is so funny because that means that it's so tight because then I would have gotten scammed. I would have gotten into so many pump and dumps on Bitcoin Talk that I would have gotten just sick of the feed.
I
Right?
had
I was just getting sick, but instead I stayed focused. Well, at least for me, I didn't get jaded. I stayed focused on the telegrams, and then I had a good nose. I'm Polish. I know who's bullshitting or not. It's just like a feeling we have, right? You always go to the market. Who's the person who's going to rip you off, right? So it's like I always had a nose for the people who seem legit. So then when they have some project or something's going on the side, if I like them, then I hook onto it and go in. So that's why CRMN and all these other guys that seem cool, and they ended up being these Dutch guys that were young in university, right? And like whatever, the Netherlands or something like that. And like, I have no idea where the fuck they were, but they were somewhere in Europe. And I'm like, these guys seem cool. They're doing all the cool stuff. So then I went heavy on their Telegram channel, heavy on their memes. And then I must have ended up mining because I had a full pet or whatever. And then I got 12, and I still have my 12 characters. So then, yeah, bro, like I
I
believed in it, and then it didn't happen. But like I wasn't disappointed to be disappointed because they gave it so much, and then they were so early by years, like 2 or 3 years. So it doesn't matter what they would have done, right?
yeah, I mean that's the
It was
thing
so
is that
people.
there was like they launched in the middle of crypto winter when no one was around. I mean, it didn't matter how like how amazing
Yeah,
it was going to be. Like you weren't
yeah,
going to make money in Ethereum during crypto winter. It just wasn't going to happen, right? I can't think of a single project that launched that was again. I'm not saying that there weren't, but I can't think of one that launched in like during
no,
the
peak,
bad part of
peak, it
2018.
peak. Yeah, peak cynicism is simply until PPP through COVID happened, for all the Democrat donations to get washed through FTX, there really was no new pump, right? Yeah, until it was the PPP for, I'm not saying, right? The PPP fucking pump through the Bitcoin and E. Until that spun off, there was just the doldrums of just some random stupid speculation flatlines. And even that pre-pump to 20K and back down to whatever was bullshit. Even the pump, to like the original highs, to me, it was just such a vertical rise and fall that, again, it's more bullshit. Now is like the only real sustained semi decent I think pump we have, where it just it keeps going up and everybody's already been shaken out or in, and it's really just a battle of like people who still believe it's going to go straight into the floor versus people who are like, well, there's no more, and blah blah blah, and all the reasons come true, right? And price reflects. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I thought so I found out about crypto Pepes from the Bitcoin Talk announcement. I had a couple rigs, mining rigs, and I was just looking for, new shit coins to get in early on. And so I found out about their that mining period and the like to me, I still think that the
Just at the time. So,
yeah, I mean, to me, I'm still blown away that at the fact that one, they were trying to like it's not just an NFT project, they're trying to bootstrap an entire new network to like distribute the tokens for that. So it was a very complicated project across a lot of fronts. Like they had the PEP token that was going to be used for their own L1. They also had the crypto Pepes
PFAB.
Yeah, like the DPEP, the CPEP, and just how complicated like the traits
It
and
was an
the
ecosystem. Yeah, it was an ecosystem.
yeah, I mean it's a very complicated um you know, and how they have the like the how like on chain interprets like the and creates little like haiku like crazy poems for each one or sayings for each one. I don't know. I just thought it was and the other thing I thought was really notable about that too was the quality
Yeah,
of the
does that
art.
precede CryptoPunks or no?
No, they came out after CryptoPunks, um, but you know, in terms of like the old F
But they had a
NFT
lot
project,
more auto-generated trades. Like you said, like the CryptoPunks didn't have a write-up that was auto-generated. Like that's actually I wonder if that's like some of the first crypto poetry, auto-minted crypto poetry. If you think about it, it doesn't matter about anything else. I wonder how many other programs were minting auto-generated poetry on the Ethereum chain back in that day.
yeah, it could be the first. Yeah,
If
I
you
didn't even
think
think of
about
that.
it.
I mean,
If you think about it, yeah, there's some different aspects to this where this still becomes a very notable breakthrough in AI. That's AI. That's artificial intelligence, poem generation, minted straight to the chain, done years before anything similar. That's kind of that's a grail. That's a grail, bro.
for me, you know, I played around with the you know, the breeding mechanism a few times, and I thought like um I immediately got bored with that because it like I had these like badass looking ones and I bred them and it created like these terrible looking ones. I did that a few times.
Yeah.
I was like, well, screw this. I'm over it because it was also
Yeah,
expensive
no, no,
in
buddy.
gas back then too.
I wonder where my bread ones went because like I was busy, so like I was here. Oh, they all got lost when the contract switched, right? Like everything got all fucked up. It was like the first contract and the second contract. Oh man,
Yeah, they have a wrapper now for the OGs. So that's what a lot of people are using now. Like that second contract is still around, but I mean for me the
but they
big
fucked up the date where they made the second contract new, so now it looks like it's not an OG collection. It looks like it's a few years newer. Get it? Like they fucked
yeah.
that up.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to rectify with the wrapper. So they have that in OpenSea. It shows up as like CryptoPepes 2018, and then that new one shows up as like 2021 version or something
2020.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like rat. It's rat. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, just another shit fucking Pepe fucking clone token, right? And they did it so late that it actually looks after all this shit clone. Oh,
Anyway, I thought it was interesting. Like to me, the like you know of all the things, like the fact that the art was good, but also that the
it's
as far as
really
I'm aware,
good,
like
bro.
that's the
Bro, there's
only
Pokemon. They
yeah,
put
and it's
Pokemons in it. There's Pokemon Pepe. That's so sick.
and the
Yo, the one that's Pokemon sold for a lot of ETH. Did you see
yeah,
it?
there was one that sold for
Dude,
4 ETH recently, right?
yeah, and I think it was the Pokemon one. Look at it
Yeah,
again. Like,
yeah.
I think it was the Pokemon. Dude, I think I have a Pokemon. I don't know if
Oh,
I
no
do.
way.
Man. Well,
I never
I might, bro. Oh,
in all the ones that I was able to claim, I never got anything like never got like a
I
rare
got a
like that.
dozen, and I got to check, bro. I got to 43.
RN Jesus didn't uh bless me on my crypto pepes.
Yeah, for some reason, I just remember what a fun project that. You know what? That again, it's dude. I was fed up with rare Pepe. There was so much infighting. There was the Pepe. Everything was so shit on rare Pepe Telegram chat, bro. It was so garbage, and the market was shit. The cards weren't doing well, and that's what it, dude. That's what it was. I had my rig, and I had so many mining cards, and I was like, fuck yeah, like fuck you, rare Pepe fuckheads. I don't even care that it's on Ethereum as long as it's not copying the other Pepes. And it's like it was merit based, and I'm like, why the fuck did I build all these fucking server shits if not to fucking beat everyone on like the hash power as we go balls to the wall on this brand new token? And I'm like, fuck yeah, cowboy in. Yeah, bro, dude, there was so much hope. It's, again, the hopium, bro. You don't even understand the hopium. Like, you have frogs being born out of these like Ethereum miners. They used to be this generic, Ethereum Vitalik slave, and now they've been unslaved from Vitalik and re-slaved into like some Dutch frog handlers, pirate fucking frog farmer. And I'm like, yes, this is the future now. I've gotten this correct. Like this one will be the right one now. Oh,
I
the
remember,
Hokin was insane.
well, I remember like the market was so terrible back then for like even for altcoins and mining that, for me it
It
was
gets
like
disgusting.
I was like, well, I'm just gonna YOLO this because this looks cool and is different because nothing else is gonna be worthwhile to mine anyway. So I might as well mine something cool and see what comes of it. So um
I totally suppressed that period. That's when I had an office job that I think I ended up actually fucking walking away from just because there was this weird stress and all this shit. So I got a nice little severance package. I gambled that away a single options trade over like just a month because it was like gold options. And it was some China markets closed month and everything went down. Oh my god. Anyway, I had like a few thousand left over or something. And that's what I was doing with this shit. I was doing all these Ethereum, I was doing the ETH and the fucking Bitcoin, yeah, getting the Bitcoin out to some Pepes. There's just like a little bit of a pump here and there. And that's, yeah, bro, I was like living and breathing that shit. It was like, yeah, it was a false hope, right? It was like you're hanging your
oh,
whole,
I mean, it was
it's a YOLO, right? Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
a
it
YOLO.
was like it was the same for me, man. Like, I guess it's a level of self-determination and grind. Like, I was living crypto like 24/7, for a couple of years back then, and yeah, I mean, it's real, I mean,
Dude, there's something else worked out. Ethereum Classic came out,
uh,
right?
yeah,
Then Ethereum forked, bro, and then then I made a whole bunch of money on Ethereum Classic, and then all the wrecks and all this shit from the rare Pepe, the crypto Pepe, it didn't matter. I was rolling in Bitcoin from freaking Ethereum Classic trading, bro. That's what happened. I remember.
yeah. Let me.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember
it
when that.
took a time. Everything got fucking hot. Yeah, I remember, and then I sold a bunch of Pepes for hot money. Like,
Yeah,
and it
I'm
didn't
looking up
matter.
when.
Yeah, it just didn't matter that crypto Pepes didn't happen because everything else happened around it. So I was just like, cool. Like, it was just a way to spend a bunch of time without getting wrecked on the other shit and without selling the bottom on the other shit. And then when the other shit hit, it was just like you were fresh from the Pepes.
Yeah, so definitely a good time. So I know with like so like the Peperium pretty much died, the crypto Pepes pretty much died. Rare Pepes, like they came back though in 2021. And I still think that those are, I mean, one of the
That was
it's still
irrational. Yeah, I was fighting people. I was fighting people, yelling at people to put bids in rather than market buying like at high prices and stuff. I'm like, what are you people doing? Like nobody's bought any of this stuff for years. Now you're buying it at like exorbitant prices just because everybody's. There was this weird thing where all these rich Bitcoin dudes that I guess were rich, so it's like a whole bunch of like horse equestrian style freaking high class Bitcoin people. They were all like by the dozen or the 2 dozen in like these chats, the clubhouse, going like, "Oh yeah, I just bought two more rare Pepes and blah blah." And they was like wailing around on the Pepes, and I'm like, no wonder there's like I'm like, no wonder the prices are going insane. No wonder the behavior is just insane, where everything's getting like there's no walls anymore. Everything's being destroyed. And I'm like, what is like? Why is somebody spending $250,000 on my freaking Pepe shelter or whatever the fucking shit, right? Like, why am I blowing, like, taking all these girls out to the mineral spas day after day after day, right? In my Whistler rental, like, what is happening here? I like it, but like it was disturbing, right? And then it all came to and it came to such a quick end too, where literally all these guys like, yo, there was one good dump on Bitcoin, yo, that's it. It was a time when Bitcoin and ETH were just going up and up and up. It was like the summer and the start of the fall, right?
yeah.
And it was just going up. So they're in the chat for literally a month or two, and then dude, there was a solid dump. Like, and by solid, I mean the shit fucking crashed. Like, I don't know. We went up to whatever, and like there was like a 10, 20, 30% fucking quick flash. It only came back to only like a minus 50, or like people got trapped in a wreck, and then nobody gave a fuck about any volume on those rare Pepes that they just bought the top on the top, dude, at the top, right? And I was just like, oh man, I'm so glad I got all these tweets of me yelling at people to not buy this shit for high prices because you're wrecked.
I mean, it's
I don't look like a scammer.
I mean, and we're talking now in 2024, and it's still a really, it's like I've been kind of in the market for rare Pepes, buying and selling here and there.
One or two traded a day. The cars that people bought years ago, you still can't fucking sell for the price that they bought. Something weird happened, bro.
It's
There was
really
a
kind of
mass psychosis.
well, it's kind of
Yeah.
spooky right now is that there's a lot of really desirable cards where um the ones that are listed, they're expensive, but no one's buying, and the people that, it's a weird market. If you're trying to move something quickly, you're going to get absolutely destroyed. Like, about the
Yeah.
only thing that's really been holding up really well I would say, is Rare Pepe itself, the Nakamoto card.
Because it's like a Grail flex card.
Oh
You can
yeah,
go on.
totally.
It's the
I mean,
one that's recognized. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's iconic. It even transcends the rest of the cards even, you know what I mean? It's like it's kind of an icon for the project itself. So of course, if like it makes sense for, like, if I were, let's say I got rich off of sneakers or gold mining or whoever, like whatever. And I'm not super in, like, the most educated in like NFTs, but I want to get like the one like iconic card, like for rare Pepes. That's the one card I buy. So hey, if it's 250,000 or 500,000 or a million, it's still the card to have for someone who wants to have the card, right? So, people who like get more hardcore into collecting, there's, all sorts of, like, there's a lot of nuance and depth to the collection, besides that. But it's for, like, it's an easy to understand grail for people within Rare Pepe, but even people outside of Rare Pepe understand the significance of that card. So I see why that would hold up a lot better.
You just reminded me that there's a peg token that we made, I guess, a year or two ago, probably a year ago, last year, where he took all that pool, the rare Pepe on Ethereum token, with like a pool of all the rare Pepes, and it represents a share, right?
Oh yeah, they
I
fractionalized one,
donated three
didn't they?
cards to him. Yeah, I was silly about that. I should have dumped it when it first pumped, but I held it, and then it fucking got tanked. Oh my god! And I donated three cards into it, and it got floored. I'm like, holy fuck! I just sold it, rebought the tokens, or whatever. I believe. See, I love being a hopeless optimist on this thing. So like, it just makes me avoid different entire ecosystems. Then I just stick to what works, like trustful people, artists, and shit. Right.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up later, because I think one of the, if we're thinking about the same thing, I think one of those Nakamoto's was fractionalized on one of those ETH platforms, if I'm thinking about the same
Mm-hmm.
thing. Yeah. So one of the things I always
It's some
worried about,
OGs. No, it's some OG guys. Right.
yeah, I mean, one of the things I always worried about with these fractionalization schemes is that, at a certain point, you have to be very careful about how you're designing the contract. Otherwise, again, like, for example, we're talking about this shit that was done in 2021 and 2022 when it was booming. I'm sure a ton of those wallets aren't active anymore. So, and even a decent amount probably get lost. So, I would hate to see essentially um, a rare Pepe get stuck in a contract because there aren't enough people around for, a consensus vote or whatever, whatever it is. I don't know. Just weird how the fractionalization can end up kind of orphaning assets,
Mm-hmm.
which is a real
Possibly.
risk. So, I mean, I think I see the bull case for fractionalization, but you know, there's a it there's that implicit risk of it actually not being, you know, redeemable unless there's extraordinary circumstances. So, you know.
The ETH token I'm talking about is Rare Pepe Bag, where they actually have a bag token that
Oh,
represents a
okay.
bigger and bigger emblem vault. Yeah, they have a
Oh,
bigger
I
and
know.
bigger emblem vault.
Oh, I think, yeah, I know which
You
one
know
you're
that.
talking about. Yeah, I think
And it's
that's actually,
legit Rare Pepe guys running it.
yeah,
Legit
that
Rare
one's,
Pepe guys running it.
yeah, I think that's cool. Because that to me, that's like
It's
a,
still dumped. Yeah, the ETH still dumped, but it's legit. It's as legit as it gets.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's got legit, like, you know, you can look at the wallet that, you know, it holds. I'm not familiar with again, I'm not familiar with what mechanisms there are to make sure that the wallet itself doesn't get orphaned in the event of, like, you know, I don't know. I don't know the details on that end, but I do know that the guy who's running it is legit. And like, I think that's actually kind of a smart way for someone to have, like, think of it as like an index fund of rare pepes, right? You know, I don't know. It's
There's a way
so,
to fractionalize without burning, and then churning. You just have an
well, and it gives
emblem
you,
vault that actually is a one-to-one. It's not a fractional reserve; it's a one-to-one reserve.
yeah, and the other thing I think is brilliant about I can't believe someone didn't think of it prior is that well, you know, I'm kind of like a hopeless collector, right? So for me, when I have a single, like most of my singles, I don't intend to sell, or, you know, if I do, it'll be a long, long time from now, right? So
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 all
that like having like I can take advantage of if I'm bullish on rare pepes, I can basically get the equivalent of like an index fund of all these different cards, have price exposure to the cards without having to, like, you won't get the sentimental attachment of like having to actually send away your only um you know, your only card that you really love in order to take advantage of the
and you can
price. Where,
scale in and scale out fractionally.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can just sell more tokens and, you know, you don't hurt, right? In the same way, if that makes sense, right? I mean, I know
It
we're
just gives the other
I
dimensions. Yeah, it gives other dimensions to making making it make financial sense after you
uh-huh,
prove the artistic merit concept of it,
uh-huh.
right? Like the artistic merit has to be proven, and now that that got proven, okay. But what's silly is that, like, man, Emblem Vault and Arcade XYZ actually has lending and all this shit. And I got, like, I think at 4,000, 5,000 views on those ordinal tweets where I'm suggesting stocks for ordinals, and yet nobody actually approaches you with a loan, even though 5,000 people will look at that. People still are ballless. And look, people probably got wrecked or whatever on some ordinals. They could have swapped me for that ordinal. They
Yeah,
did.
I'm always I've been very, like, well, I shouldn't say I've been careful. Like, I'm a degenerate in my own life too. But like one thing, like the I never went, like, took to the next level where I basically got leverage on my any of my NFTs. I purposely avoided, you know, taking advantage of any of those lending protocols because I don't know, it's I've seen so many people get wrecked with that. You know, and the last thing you'd want to do
Oh, it's
is
hilarious. The stories, right? Yeah, the guy owes a house because of this punk or whatever. Fucking yeah. You laugh at
yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean, for example, like, you know, some of those lending platforms, they you can take out is it arcade or is no, I think it's in I think
Yeah, Arcade XYZ
NTFI.
is one of them.
I think NTFI, I think I've seen loans denominated in F, which to me was like super risky because you know how volatile the price of ETH has been, and like my fear has
Yeah.
been confirmed where in the last, what, 18 months it's gone from like just over $1,000 to like $3,000 now. So imagine if you had a 1 year term
Mm-hmm.
loan where not only are you paying like
But you
a
owe
pretty
it
high
in ETH.
APR, like you've got to come up with, you know, more than twice what your initial, like, I don't know, you just get hurt really bad. So
They knew what they were doing.
yeah, I mean, you have to, like, if you're going to take advantage of that stuff, you've got to put on your big boy pants and really understand what you're getting involved with. So I mean, we've seen, you know, I think we've seen like a autoglyph get defaulted on, and, you know, tons of apes, all that kind of stuff. Like, it happens. So, you know, it's definitely a real
But these
risk.
these companies make asymmetrical bets because think about it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, totally.
You
Like,
roll.
and it's the most
They go
logical thing in
bankrupt.
the world to
They don't
do,
have to
right?
pay you.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, why
they're
wouldn't
willing
you?
to go bankrupt. Yeah.
Well, why wouldn't I, like, as a lender, if I can make if I can make a loan at a same like asset to loan value, like why wouldn't I do that? I'm guaranteed to make, like, most of these loans, they're making like, you know, 20% APY, one that's guaranteed money. And then if they default, I make out even better, right? It's kind of like a win-win for the lender if you structure it properly. So
Well, if somebody pays for 5 years, you amortize that, and then any money you get from the recovery is pure profit, right?
yeah.
20% a year times 5 years,
Yeah,
you've
totally. Yeah.
recovered
I
the
mean,
value of the principal.
yeah, I mean, you compound that 20% a year, you're like, that's a pretty decent side hustle for someone, So, I mean, anyway, again,
It's a
like you,
percentage where the bank is raking it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, again, like a lot of these platforms, it's again big boy time because, I think with the way I was reading about, like with NT, is it in NFTI? You and I think it's the same with Arcade. You're negotiating these terms with the other party. So, you know, if you make too generous or of a loan, you can get burned too. I remember a bunch of those when some of these like big traders were buying a bunch of like Azukis or apes or whatever, they'd buy and immediately take out the max loan possible, and then the repayment ends up being like the debt owed ends up being more than what the floor price would be worth. So of course they default, and anyway, yeah, it's just
Well,
weird.
what you don't mention is before you get that loan, all these guys pump all their Azukis into you,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So now you're buying from like a colluded merchant. You're signing your life away for a monkey or some Azuki that was in an insider trade. Oh,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, and yeah, it's yeah, again, it's definitely room to or reason to have caution before, like, I mean, crypto is
it's a
already risky
gambling.
enough
It's,
as
it's
it
a new
is.
level. It's a
Yeah, then
new
NFTs are
level
another, like,
dimension to the
yeah,
gambling racket. Like,
yeah, and then you add another layer on top of that. I mean, we're getting like, yeah, it's definitely and but hats off to the, like, hey, there's got cats that have made a tremendous amount of money, like flipping punks and apes and whatnot. I mean, hats off to them. You know, hey, if I had that, like, you have to have a lot of capital to bootstrap a lot of that stuff too. But hey, if I no hard feelings. If I had the ability to do it, I'd that seems like a pretty sweet way to make a hustle, make a life, right?
as what you just touched on. You have to deploy capital at this type of thing to ride out the variance where a lot of people default and you don't get the
Yeah.
payments, you get chase people for assets, blah blah. But in the whole, you get both, right? You get the user fees, you get the interim profits, and you get the big recoveries when people default.
Mhm.
So it's up. So then it's just making you money. But yeah,
Yeah, it's
it's
a
a rich player's game for poor fools. The,
yeah.
the parable I wanted to share,
Mhm.
this guy who's working at the high-tech company in Regina with me, he's like very young, a little bit into trading crypto, trading Bitcoin, whatever. He starts telling me this nightmare story where now he's owing like $100,000 or something to some British fucking foreign currency trader because he signed an agreement where he's going to go 100 to 200x on that FX, and then the thing fucking slips and stops or whatever. Get it? Like with
Yeah.
no money down, he goes to owing under his name. And I think again, the company doesn't care if you paid him the 100,000 or if you just have a loan to sell to somebody else for 5% on the loan, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, that's
sorry,
one
yeah,
thing that
5% on the collection. Yeah,
one thing I like one area where I knew that FTX was super sus before it blew up is I was like, man, everyone is making all this crazy loot trading, like, man, like this, I'd done trading like years prior to that. I was like,
yeah,
I'm gonna like YOLO like 500 or 1,000 or something and do some leverage trading because the market was hot then, and
yeah.
Anyway, so of course I took one thing I learned is like with no real ID verification, you could set up an account. You just can't say you're from the US or whatever, but you can set up an account and you can get access to leverage. Like I think you could get like 50x leverage with like no next level verification. So the way that FTX worked, which blew my mind, is and I ended up taking advantage of it because I blew up with my little like baby bet. But essentially the way they had their contract structured is if you um if you blow
You
up
could exceed
and
the leverage allowance, right? And
so
then
so
enough pay
if you
for it.
yeah, so essentially, if your trade goes sideways on leverage and you end up owing more than what you have posted as collateral, they would cover that with their FTT. They had some mechanism with FTT
Insurance fund.
token. Yeah, they had an insurance fund, but that was backed by FTT token, which
Oh, okay.
yeah, it had a huge market cap, but I just like when I ran into that, I was like, this doesn't make sense. Why? Like this is a such an asymmetric opportunity. There's nothing to stop like someone who's thinking about this from spinning up 50 or 100 different accounts, like taking advantage of and just like leverage trading that when they blow up, you walk away and you've only lost a minuscule amount of capital. But when it wins, you win big with a 50x on a small initial return. The losses that they would incur due to that just seemed like it didn't make sense. Like it didn't. I just knew something. I didn't know about a lot of the other operations, but I knew that just from like a common sense perspective, I didn't see how that would could continue, right?
I think you're hitting a nail on the head here where there's probably a lot of money laundering that was going through that. Because
Yeah. Hmm.
you take a little bit of dirty money, you make a directional bet,
Yeah.
and if it pays off,
Hmm.
now you have this hot account, and off you go.
Yeah. Anyway, just
Kind of
just
funny.
wild stuff. Yeah, it's I mean, and now we're in 2024 where we've had the big news was that Bitcoin ETF approval. Um I don't what are your thoughts on that and the effect in the market?
I hope they don't approve it. Now they've
Well,
been exposed that,
it got approved. It's
well,
already
I mean,
approved.
well, I guess I'm talking about ETH ETF.
Oh, okay, yeah. Uh-huh.
Like ETH, yeah, ETH is just so dirty on receipts that now the regulatory bodies have basically been colluding to allow an asset to reach the market. That's like a compromised asset. That's basically like a Trojan horse asset. So for me, it's the exact reverse. First, you're cheering on the regulatory bodies to allow links between traditional finance and these new decentralized markets. And now I'm thinking there's actually enough shown that this stuff is being used for like political manipulation with eventual monies. You need to put a full on stop to a
I
lot of
guess
the
yeah.
goodwill that's being shown to it because it's a Trojan horse again.
Well, yeah, ETH has definitely been treated more favorably than pretty much any other altcoin. For what reason, I don't know, by the regulatory agencies, but um, it. I guess I was worried with even with the Bitcoin ETF approval that we would be seeing that we would be allowing the banks to have even more leverage to play financial games with Bitcoin and people who think they're getting exposure to Bitcoin, and even long term, like I think what I think people should consider as a real risk, especially considering how things have been changing in the United States, is that in the big picture that like there is a real risk where if Bitcoin blows up or the US dollar gets in trouble or just the political risk of a lot of like there's a lot of terrible things happening right now in the US with regard to um with regard to the legal system. Let's just say that, and with how that's being
Very
handled, right?
partisan. Yeah, it's very partisan.
Yeah,
Very,
yeah.
very
So,
partisan.
I mean, we're seeing political, like open political prosecution and political favoritism, protectionism from the DOJ at this point. I mean,
Dirty
it's
tricks. Yeah,
yeah,
all the
it's
dirty tricks.
irrefutable. It's not up for debate. If you know what's going on, you can't deny that. So, I think what like to me, what occurred to me is a big risk. Before I was concerned much more with the giving the banks, the mega banks, especially tools to manipulate price through these financial instruments. But like what occurred to me too is a like should be people should be thinking more about self custody for another reason is that what
Maybe
is
the
the
bank.
biggest what is the biggest juiciest target in the world if Bitcoin continues to blow up and the US government continues to behave irresponsibly? They will absolutely steal that. They'll steal it. They'll steal the Bitcoin. They'll steal all those assets. They'll do it.
Well, they've requisitioned gold. They've proven that any class can be just with the stroke of a pen declared government property during war or
The,
whatever. And so,
I mean, the core tenet of Bitcoin initially, or one of the core ideas, is the idea of self-sovereignty in finance. And when we're like these, I understand like allow these ETFs and these financial products enabling more market participants to gain exposure. But again, it's a custodial system where, you know, no like no company is going to say no to the government and win, especially with how the legal system and the judicial system is anymore. You know,
you
you
just
know,
wrote a white paper for the best cryptocurrency. It's an AI currency that detects whether you're free or not and only disperses your crypto balance to pay for your transactions that you request to be paid for if it appears that you're a free agent and not under any control or restraint from anybody else. Otherwise, it doesn't allow the crypto transactions, no matter whether you have the key or not or whatever. Get it? Like
yeah, yeah. I mean,
freedom coin.
yeah, but I mean, I just think that I mean, you're aware that like even like the gold ETF, um, like there's been a lot of smoke in terms of chicanery going on there with the like the amount of gold that actually is um backing
Well, why
that
wouldn't they do fractional? Yeah, why wouldn't they defraud
well
you?
they
There's
were
more on in stocks than there is. So why wouldn't they do that?
yeah,
It's
I
an
mean
easy
there's
way to
there
make money, right?
oh totally. I mean and the other thing that did is in a similar time when the that gold ETF launched it was it soaked up a lot of physical demand and funneled it into paper synthetics. But the other deal was that as an example of one of the things that people have noted in terms of oddities that are hard to explain is they had a zero on Zero Hedge they had an article where they were pointing out that on a CNBC live shot they had like I think it was Bob Pisani, one of their reporters went out to the to like do a dog and pony show with the GLD
Hmm.
vault where they had the gold custodied, and they actually allowed him to pick up a bar, and when he flipped it over it displayed the
It's
serial
fake.
number, and of course these autists are going to go and they're going to check it, and they like that wasn't a bar that they were supposed to have had custody of, so there's definitely some chicanery. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, there's chicanery going on in ownership, and I mean that's it.
They're
Like
double
this,
showing the gold.
I
They're
mean, and this
double
shouldn't.
showing the gold.
I mean, this shouldn't be a surprise. Like that's the history of banking, right? Anytime you have custody, you have these types of
Listen, we're
rehypothecation.
gonna just loan out your gold for a few years, and then maybe, oh look, we can pay it back. Oh my holy Mary,
Yeah,
and then we pay back your gold. Yeah, just so you know, Lionel Hutz's loan of your gold no longer exists. Your gold is back now.
yeah. So anyway, that's kind of what I was thinking with these ETFs. I mean, it'll I've from what I've seen in terms of filings, it sounds like a lot of companies are getting also lining up to do the Ethereum ETFs. I mean, so I who knows when we'll hear either way, like these agencies are so opaque. But anyway, so a lot of financial news with Bitcoin in the last 6 months.
Yeah,
So
it's a thing.
yeah, it's interesting. So are there any other are there any projects or anything that you've been working on that you wanted to touch on?
No, I've abstained from everything. Oh God, thank God. No,
Oh, I did
everything like
remember something else we got to touch on too, though, Marty, is like you were featured in the Feelsgoodman documentary, right?
yeah, I called that. Yo, they were so woke. They were so fucking radical in their fucking lefty postings on Twitter. The directors of that fucking documentary, aside from their Japanese website, which is like independent, the Japanese Twitter, they got their fucking Twitter banned for being so fucking lefty in
Really?
their posts. Yeah, like kill me, right? So like I used to have like, oh yeah, go see me in Feels Good Man. They follow me on Twitter and they got blocked and banned and like they used to just troll the most lefty shit, the most woke shit. And I'm like dead. Like I'm just like and then they called it because I'm like, why did this film get made so early? And it's pretty much like a Trump lampoon piece and shit. It's all like a QAnon lampoon piece and all this shit. And I'm like, what the fuck happened here? And then something was weird because as it got promoted, it got into all these streams where it just got like these directors would be like, oh yeah, we're on this radio show, and like we don't know what this radio show is, but I look it up and it's like again like one of these like Ellen type funnels, right, where it's like super woke, super lefty,
Oh
and it
yeah.
just like went on all this. Yeah, and it did this talk show host where all the two directors that made the film, they kind of were kind of I think whatever, just regular guys, and they were like deer in headlights about all these big shows that they're going on, and I'm like, yo, this is fuck. This is right in the run up to the election. This film was like a hit piece, and then these guys are getting paraded like ponies with their little hit piece pony in all these fucking shows, and then it wins the Emmy Award, woohoo, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? This shit was engineered to fucking get all this exposure and try to tank Trump right into the election, and it didn't work. But that doesn't matter. Like it was still done. It was done that way. Like,
Yeah, what was your experience with the actual like filming of the documentary, and how did you think it like the documentary itself turned out?
it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. They cut out most of what I actually said on any kind of filming fucking shit. They kind
Hmm.
of typecast me as just this kind of oh yeah the gambler dude whatever. And then everything that I said about crypto to Matt Fury, he literally sat on his hands for 2 or 3 years until he made his Twitter and started selling, it works for 50 ETH each. And I'm like, bro, like you can get it now. There's a card reserved for you. Blah blah blah. He had zero interest. He would just like take a puff of his cigarette, look at me like I'm crazy, and just like go on his happy way because like it wasn't real money. It wasn't media. It wasn't this or that. It was just like some funny stuff you guys are talking about on the computer, right? Like it's, and then he was a pretty late adopter into the whole crypto stuff, and then he basically went through some platform country and stuff, so they get some prepackaged deal. And yeah, he's an artist, he makes stuff now, but it's like he's got a huge following now. Lots of people like it and stuff. But like he was so late to the game, but then he's selling stuff for 50 each. It was so funny. It was
I
so
mean
funny. Like
he
I just find that funny.
I mean he did make a mint off the heads, which was that those one of ones that he sold, which are cool. And then he had like all these follow-on
All this stuff is
collections.
cool, but look how late he came into the game.
Well, even as late as he
Ridiculous.
came into
He's
the
been there now.
yeah, being late is one thing, but the way he handled, the team saving him a card, like that was really bad. I mean, like you can't spin it in a positive light. How they, the I think it was Joe Looney held that card like for him for years, and then they does a burn down and distributes it to his private DAO. Like okay.
And I went in on that, bro. I think I even bought some of that or did something. I don't even know where the fuck that went. I don't even know what the fuck's going on.
Well,
But like, it's like,
so what
yeah,
I think what happened is when he was selling those heads tokens artworks is I think that got you up like into like some sort of like heads DAO or something. I'd never bought those, so I wasn't super involved. But essentially, well, long and short of it is that they had a DAO, and they sold one of that feels good the token he minted. They sold one of them in an auction that I think it ended up going for a quarter million, maybe half a
bro.
million. And the way they worded it sounded like the remainder, the other 99 were going to be held by the DAO. And to me, it sounded like a very clever way of having an artificially inflated uh, market
Yeah,
cap of the DAO,
valuation of this
right?
stuff
Yeah,
because it's
by
not
only
liquid.
selling one, yeah, by only selling one into the market and then you hold the other 99, it makes it look like it's this like super valuable DAO, even though, you can't sell those all for, the same price if you started selling them into the market. But
And
instead
it's
of
an inside trade to begin with. Yeah.
yeah. So instead of doing even that, he then just distributed, like gave one to all of these DAO members, and of course they started flooring them. So this guy got like he sued because he felt like it was misrepresentation, which I
Well,
interpreted
of
it the same
course.
way. Maybe I'm naive, but anyway, so it was just terrible. He didn't even give a card back to Joe or any of the Rare Pepe scientists or anything either for keeping that. So but I mean, no, like I don't hold anything against him for it like continuing to do artwork and minting. But I guess the other thing I thought was weird or kind of like rubbed me the wrong, or I
Telling
don't
me
know,
that
just
Matt Fury launched a DAO that redistributed and then people floored his stuff.
yeah, uh-huh,
Oh man. So then okay, so I told him about this shit on my boat in like 2017, 18. He
yeah.
didn't do it. Then he launched a rug years later.
Yeah, I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know what the purpose of the DAO is, but that's what happened. They
Well, he fucked
distributed
it. No,
that.
he fucked it up. Look, if
Yeah,
the
so
end result is that it rugs, then it's a rug, and then all the other stuff is the details. He didn't
well,
have any interest in this shit for years. Then he rugs people, and then he makes excuses. So he's literally like the most prototypical, like Johnny come late, Lee, like fraudster for the like. Once he saw the money in it, then he fucked everyone, but not
so
before. And I'm like,
I
oh man.
I wouldn't say it's a rug in the sense that he did take care of his DAO members, like they were taken care of, but everyone else got rug. Because I thought, before they announced like how that all worked out, I was a collector of rare Pepes, and that was a 500 supply card. So my hope at the time is even as like a small collector, it's like, hey, well, maybe they'll like do a Dutch auction, or maybe they'll just like sell these in dispensers or something. So we're like a small person like myself would have a chance to buy one for maybe an ETH or two, because it's a historic card, the creator of Rare Pepe doing that. And instead it turned into something really like I think was kind of, I don't know, it felt sleazy, you know. Um, anyway, so and again, so rob more people of even the opportunity of to own that too. And now, I mean, it's still a pretty high floor price card too. So, I mean, I hope to get one eventually, but the way that all transpired was just, I don't know, didn't feel right.
It's like live and learn, except like it's again when you're giving people like the benefit of the doubt, or you're giving them a chance to do something honest, and then in hindsight it ends up being the most fucked up thing, whether it's honest or dishonest or not, by intention or not. But and then like again, and then the community project ends up shining bright because it doesn't experience all that shit, because it doesn't have these weird hidden agendas of either
Yeah.
getting rich quick or doing some protectionist fucking non-community driven thing, right? Like, yeah,
Were
it's
you
funny.
aware of
It's funny how
the
big of a contrast it is.
yeah, the other thing I thought was weird too, um, is he has that other art project that he launched where he sold these like little one of one like mini videos, animations, but he called those rare Pepes. It was like what?
Exactly. Like so.
It's like
So oh my god. Oh my god. Like
yeah,
wow.
it's just
So
like
years after, when he
Right.
sees that Rare Pepe itself is accepted, then he's like, well, they ripped me off, so now I'm going to rip them off, rather than in original, rather than being part of the community or adopting it at the earliest part. It's like you just think you grift off of it later,
Exactly. That's
even
how
though
it
they
seems.
grifted off you. Yeah, even though they grifted off you. That's
However,
so the grift back, the grift back. Yeah.
so I guess in balance though, like what I took away though from that documentary, because again, I also thought that they kind of the documentary glossed over and didn't really explain in enough detail that a lot of the hate stuff with Pepe was strictly just to chase off normies. It wasn't like serious, right? I mean, I thought
That
they
it was very tongue in cheek. Yeah, those over the
right,
top tongue in
exactly.
cheek
I
stuff.
I thought they didn't really represent that either
They were
fairly or
intentionally obtuse, bro. I told you
yeah,
it was an anti-Trump hit piece. They were intentionally obtuse. They made the appearance of being fair and balanced because, like, oh look, we have Trump's chief of memes in the documentary talking about stuff. But they ridiculed QAnon. They ridiculed any kind of truthing, and yet the whole laptop thing was happening at the same time, and
oh
all this
god, yeah.
China. So it's like it was an astroturf. And then, dude, again, I'm telling you, by the guys that they went on the radio shows and stuff, it all looks like a paid internal lampoon project where even the Emmy was guaranteed. Like that's like Emmy recognized Trump hit piece. Let's go. Like, yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
awesome,
I
dude.
guess what I could
So
say
cool.
as a positive though in the whole thing um is that, you know, again, I don't really like a lot of the business decisions that Matt made, but you know, he's free to do whatever he wants. I mean, that's perfectly within his right. But what I took away though is that you could really see the innocence and the purity and like the vision that he had, like the way he like at least with the early stuff, like his vision and his like the creation is very pure, right? And I think that was very instrumental in Pepe really becoming a breakthrough phenomenon, right? It's still, you know, as we're talking, like the de facto meme of the internet, right? So
I would argue that Pepe itself and just the cuteness of a Kermit recognizable like character is the only thing that made Matt Perry a fucking household name, because nobody on Facebook was actually sharing Boys Club until the singular Pepe character, which you can trace back to Flip and Flopper, a Disney comic character now from the 1930s, 20s, fucking literally like Flip and Flopper the frog with
mhm.
wide lips and they had noses and all this, and they all under Disney. Now it's, you know, a common property or whatever. So literally like a reboot of Kermit the Frog that was just a minor character among, you know, Landwolf, among all these other, you know. And again, you know, people showed exactly. I hate to do this, but people showed literally a clone of Boys Club being made beforehand, and it's pretty much the same characters, and it's all the Wolfmans and all this shit, and it's some other dude making it. Like it almost looks like that got ripped. Like it's, dude, like people need to start acknowledging that people all draw copycat shit of each other, and that's not what's really important. What's important is like if you have a community project and it's made to be copycats and memes and stuff like that, that there's a value to that, because now you've escaped the whole publisher and the rubber stamp and all, right? Like, you know, the peers, if the, yeah, once the peers are the judges, then things get honest, because you got Hillary Pepe, you got Trump Pepe, you have both sides, and it's understood that you have to allow both viewpoints. Versus our common media ends up allowing both viewpoints, as in they'll allow a straw man of the opposition or a controlled opposition, and then just lampoon you with
Yeah,
propaganda from the side that they want you to view on. So it's like, and
yeah,
main NFTs and stuff again became the same thing now. Where like literally most of the common NFTs for whether it's mafia, whether it's spies, whether it's fucking CIA, whoever the fuck it is, there's so much dirty washed money through all this fucking MoonPay stuff. And dude, I got receipts on MoonPay where they get rejected from Malta because they're so dirty. and Malta doesn't want to grant them fucking license. So like, how fucked up do you have to be? Exactly. How
Well,
fucked
I
up do you
mean,
have to be that some
when
fucking pirate island is afraid of your book? That's
well,
sad, bro. And yet that stuff is being pushed by politicians and fucking, well, not politicians. It's being pushed like, to Mayor Suarez when fucking Gordon Gooner shows up for a luncheon because he's a charity donator. Like, yo, give me a break, man. It's the mafia fucking having a front company to look decent with all this dirty money. It's sad.
yeah, it
Sad.
it's one of the reasons why I think the um, you know, OG Rare Pepe project really is going to stand the test of time and already has, is that as a community project, it has a completely different vibe than um, almost any other project out there. Again, people were memeing and having fun and creating this art with no expectation of a meaningful return. Yeah, some people sold some stuff early for okay, like it wasn't life-changing money, right? With a couple of exceptions. So,
Well, I don't know
I
if I told you, but I made $500,000. I blew a quarter million, and then I put a quarter million into this Baroque fucking rug radio shit. I got rugged for all of that by holding it for a year and a half, as the guy turned out to be a complete fucking pedophile, fucking clown, fucking fraud, a criminal, literally, like just a self-admitted criminal with a cabal of fucking fraudsters. So it's like, and this stuff is all linked to the Chinese fucking mafia gangs that are doing the Ethereum shit. So it's like, dude, there's some shit that's just inconvenient facts, which is like multiple foreign intelligence agencies working together to defraud average fucking investors while funding fucking subversion operations against American political, like, right wing. Holy shit! Like, it's all together. It's weird. And
I
the
mean,
receipts are there, like with boring sleuth and like testimony from like Stephen Aroff was fucking prosecuted by the U.S. government that then relented and now it's being exposed and fucking being collusive in the fucking ETH cover up, where the ETH is suggesting deleting some old blogs that show the Chinese Communist Party funding Ethereum. Whoops. I mean, whoops. Like, whoops.
yeah, I thought the CCP had their own version of F, wasn't it Ant shares or
Oh
something
yeah,
like?
the Tron was also proven to be garbage. So again, they have Tron, they have their own CBDCs, but like you just undeniable that some entity called Wang Zhang, according to Truth Labs, is just funding the initial Vitalik. Well, it's not Vitalik making his beat. He's again a puppet agent with all the fucking machinations from major stuff linked to Sequoia, linked to Hunter Biden. I mean, this stuff is like all this FTX stuff. It flows right back to China. But what I'm arguing, from what I'm reading, and a guy called Real Richard Poe, is somebody who's got just a whole bunch of geopolitical stuff under his belt, is again, like, anybody who's a good spy doesn't get caught. Use somebody else to get burned. And I'm seeing a lot of fingers into this stuff connecting. Where like an advisor from like JP Morgan will like do a year in the UK, then fly over to China or Singapore or Hong Kong, advise some ICO project where it's literally like 99% Chinese people and this one guy advisor, and then the whole thing runs for millions of dollars and steals everyone's money. And I'm like, what's that British guy doing? Like advising everyone how to do it.
Do
It's
you ever
kind of
see
funny.
the
I gotta.
Do you ever see the China Hustle?
Is it a film or what is it?
Yeah, it's a documentary. So, I know it's kind of a similar theme that as to what you're talking about. So, it documents a couple of investors that that ended up noticing that there were these the what's the it's not ICOs, it was uh, the SPACs, right? So these Chinese companies would do a SPAC where they'd buy a like an exit like a super old company or worthless company that has a ticker, and then they would do a merge with that, and they wouldn't have to go through the regulatory burden of due process that like a traditional listing would entail.
They could just start
So
marketing it to people.
yeah,
Yeah.
so what they would do is they
And
would
then
they
they do
base
a pump and dump. Yeah.
well, beyond a pump and dump. Some of these weren't even a pump and dump. It was a long-term fraud. But essentially, they had all these
Mm.
companies where they'd get in bed with banks and they'd market it in the U.S. And one of them the film's really brilliant because it has um, a a couple of guys started specializing in actually becoming short sellers and doing essentially kind of like an investigative project out of it, where they would conduct the investigation, establish their own short position, publish the research, let the rest of the market dog pile in, and then they'd nuke the thing from orbit because it's been a fraud the entire time. Like they there was one of them where it was this supposed to be this big factory, like with all this, super successful, and it was just like as this tiny, like almost like a dump with all this like wet cardboard. It was like completely worthless, like worthless properties, worthless assets, and just complete fraud, right? So, but they just had basically this.
The genius is in knowing that the bank isn't double checking any of this, and the
Well,
fact that you can set it up. Right? That is
well,
a genius in itself.
the banks were the banks were giving a wink and a nod. That was the thing, is that like,
Uh-huh.
and everyone knew what was going on, but no one
Collusion.
put,
It's collusion.
you know anyway. I thought that sounds really similar to what you're talking about. So yeah, I can totally, I'm not familiar with that aspect, but I do know that and like what we've seen with FTX, like we definitely do know that there was money laundering going on from, uh going through Ukraine, then getting funneled back to politicians in the US, and who knows where else a lot of that money was going. But you know it's
Yeah,
definitely
well,
murky
that's
stuff.
yeah, that's the obvious one because it's already done. What's surprising is that FTX was happening. Everyone's just assuming it's some angel exchange. Everyone's assuming Ethereum's just getting all these approvals, and then we find out that like the SEC guy, while he's teaching at MIT, is not teaching stuff correctly. He's saying it's just like ETH comes out of thin air, and some Toronto investor puts money in it. We find out that for years these guys have been lying about the origins of this stuff in school courses. They've been serendipitously placed in the right places, in
I
government
mean,
agencies to approve it. It's
I
very
haven't.
funky as an accident. Look, it just looks like a very funky, greedy accident. When in hindsight, there's years of very coordinated kind of scheming going on to make it happen. That's when it starts looking like literally an intelligence agency operation, where it's even multiple intelligence agencies doing it together just to establish some weird kind of international spy money, international election kind of profiteering. Because look, you had Twitter using Arbitrum to game and bet and profit off the swings in the US elections, in the midterm elections. That was revealed in the Twitter files. None of that would be possible without this very, again, like Arbitrum on Ether or on fucking its own chain, whatever the fuck it was. But you're able to go in, make some social bet, and if that comes out correct based on your manipulation of Twitter and other stuff, then you make money. So now you have, like, you get it? Like, you can be this evil, weird, like, communist, wokist entity, manipulate public opinion, bet on your successful manipulations, get rewarded with, like, political change in the way you want it, rewarded with the money on the bet you made. Dude, it's like Darth Vader making his own casino, winning his own bets while he's strangling who he's going to strangle next. That's so funny to me, like, in the cynicism of it. And then it got busted in some way because it was like an overreach. It's weird.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised to like learn that there's more to the FTX thing than, like, again, like, there's a lot of stuff that points that there's probably some intelligence agency
Well, it's just
involvement.
the fact that just the fact that Sequoia is there and the one in the top lines, and then nobody's getting prosecuted in the White House. It's very easy to say. Just there's sometimes foreign countries that have local people believing that, for whatever reason, that they're the best controllers of kind of American future for at least now, if not forever. And then you
I
get
don't,
this weird stuff where, like, that the Patriots lose out, right? You have some weird puppet person in the White House, and then all the people who are supposed to bust it, they're winking and nodding it to go along because they're kind of helping a foreign enemy. Why? Who knows? It's just a thing. But it's like That's the funny
I
part.
could
That's the funny
it
part.
could it could be either way. It could even be more simple too. I know the last like another example where we had like a huge fraud that was MF Global Corzine. That guy got a walk, and he admitted basically to um, stealing segregated funds and gambling with it in essence in the market. He never did time, and a lot of investors lost money. Like MF Global was a big commodities firm too, so like even like farmers and stuff got.
Did he reveal anything? Did he squeal on anything? Like, did he reveal anything? Did he sign any kind of plea deals? Because, like,
Well, so he
usually
Corzine
to
was
avoid serious prosecution, you reveal
well,
some systemic, thing that's
he
going
like
on.
it's what he didn't reveal. So Corzine was a big uh, bundler of funds for the Obama administration, the campaigns, right? So
Oh, now this rings a bell. Yeah.
yeah. So that's why I said it. Like it doesn't have to like not saying that there's not international stuff. It could also just be even more basic, in terms of like what's going on. Um, but anyway, yeah, I guess we've got a lot to look forward to in the coming years. I guess is there anything else you're looking out for in the crypto space or things that you're paying attention to?
I always go back to, like, we were supposed to have the Jetstones cars and, a flying future living in the clouds. And we're more and more moving into the Flintstones mobile era where you have to go and kick your own car down the road because gas is unaffordable and you can't afford maintenance. So you got to rust it on foreign shit. No, this dystopian mix where we've got literally, I don't know if you've ever read any William Gibson or kind of the Neuromancer and this Bruce Sterling. Like the
I just read
OG guys kind of go ahead.
I just read I'm kind of embarrassed to admit it, but I just finally read Snow Crash a few months ago.
Snow Crash,
And
Burning Chrome, yeah, all those awesome short stories made into adaptations.
I mean
That's
it's
cool.
it's
Wintermute, yeah, Wintermute.
I haven't read any of those other ones yet. It's on my to-do list to read more of his work, but like I was really blown away with Snow Crash and just how like that was written in the early 90s. It's spooky how and a lot like how really like close he is with some of the tech and some of the social commentary is interesting too. Of course, it didn't end up like that, but you know, uh, um, I don't know. It's just kind of creepy and how visionary he was. Like, you know, again, 94. There's probably like what were we rolling? Still rolling with like 1 and 2x speed CD-ROMs or something. I mean, I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah, it was the 486. I think a lot of the books that were based on psychological, like the psychology of people, and just assuming that isn't going to much change, those ones got a hit, and those ones got it right because they nailed kind of. You say that it doesn't really apply, but I think aside from the details where they kind of overstretch some of the corporate type weird stuff, which in a way we still got it, it's just not as in your face. Like it's not
Yeah,
like the societal controls are different. They nailed the idea that we're gonna have things in the future which we would never thought of being accepted as commonplace back in the past. And now nobody bats an eye twice about it, such as getting death shots or getting weird vaccines or getting fucking face masks being accepted, blah, blah, blah. Whatever change you've got now, which is commonplace among people, if you had written it in that book 20 years ago, 30, 40 years ago, people will go like, okay, this is no longer sci-fi. This is just fantasy weird book. And you could have written today's reality. That's what I'm arguing, right? Where like, that's kind of what I'm seeing, where like people seem to not really anticipate how shockingly radical our tomorrow constantly is, while the sci-fi and the predictions kind of keep this like the Overton window, right? What you're allowed to discuss, what you're not allowed to discuss. Like a lot of our predictions of the future stay within a pretty narrow scope of stuff that you're allowed to talk about being different in ways that you're allowed to talk about. Whereas the way that reality unfolds seems to actually rug us in the most severe way, right? Where like you have cloned puppies mixed with dogs and mixed with a fruit. Oh my God, what is it? A raspberry? Is it a dog? I don't know.
I don't know.
Like
I
it, it's
think
delicious. Yeah.
I think some of that though is basically is just due to like most people not having a grasp of history. I mean, I know for me it was like reading some of the classics like When Money Dies, and there's another like classic. It's a short book called Fiat Money, Inflation in France. You know, to just see how like these aren't just stories about money. They're stories about human behavior and social order and all this other stuff. Like to see how quickly everything can change out from underneath you. Um, yeah, I mean that's something that like we have this illusion of stability in a sense in these
That's what you're hitting on. Yeah.
yeah.
Nobody sees all of us standing in our own little rowboat, literally about to tip over by the next little storm or wave or our own actions or the way we misbalance the paddle or you hit a little rock. Everyone's like, I've got a house, a car, an apartment, and a job.
Oh,
I am rock solid. It's like your company's going bankrupt. Your house has got black mold and your car's being recalled. Those usually don't all happen in the same day or ever, but they could,
yeah. I
right?
mean, the other thing that makes it really bizarre, though, at least I mean, at least to me right now, is that you know, I know that a lot of things haven't been working in the manner in which they were supposed to, supposedly work. But essentially we're like, like you're saying, we're trying to like get by, like keep our jobs, our houses and all that stuff going. Meanwhile, like at least in the past there was the illusion that the governments and institute like in the elected bodies would be working for your benefit. But now like we have them openly trying to push towards like crazy things like CBDCs that are there's zero benefit to us, and like the downsides are tremendous. Like I don't know, it's a weird it's a very volatile situation we find ourselves in right now. So I'm it's interesting to see what happens going forward. You just have to look out
It
for
makes sense. It makes sense if you looked at the BlackRock comment where they say you have to incentivize behavior. So now I'm a politician who wants everyone to do well. Well, listen, you dumb cows. Moo. Like the people who voted for me, you dumb farting cows. I'm going to incentivize you to eat crickets so your cow farts, smell better to me rather than eating each other's beef or whatever, right? Because then moo moo moo, like when I'm on the stage, I respect you as people, but in reality, I want to control you as cattle with my policies, right? Because it's for the betterment of the herd, right? Notice that
yeah.
politics is now getting into this cynical way where, like, once you get into a position of power, whether it's business or politics, it's all about kind of staying yourself there, which makes perfect sense if you're into the upper echelons. But it seems that the way you stay up there is by making these crass movements that demonstrate to the other string pullers that aren't you or aren't necessarily, in as much of a direct influence over your decision making, policy that you can make, that you'll be good in the next level up, and in the next year, in the next 5 years, 10 years, you'll be a trusted individual, to make either very callous decisions with regular people's lives because you believe in this overarching idea that we can hurt a little bit of the herd, or we can make an unpopular position because we somehow are very much illuminated to long-term goals. And I'm like, man, like the more time goes on, the more the internet exists, the more you see that all of this long-term central planning and this keeping of secrets and all this stuff, that's always a shortcut. Because what's it a shortcut against? The resistance of the populace, right? We're going to introduce cricket feeding, and everyone's going to love it and eat it. And like, if we just did it by telling you that you're going to love crickets, you're going to hate it. So we'll just like fuck with your food supply until all that's left is a cricket, and then there you go. You're eating it and loving it because it's just something other than nothing. And it's like, that just doesn't have faith in God. That maybe like, if you tell people, look, all we have are crickets for you, so we'll give you this crickets, you can eat it or whatever. And then people say like, hey, if you feed a cricket to a fish, you'll catch a lot of fish. When the fish fucking dies, you get a lot of whatever fertilizer. You can grow stuff on that, and then you can turn a few crickets into a whole bunch of field crops or whatever, right? Like whatever, right? You just allow people to figure stuff out without
I,
laws that like, no, you cannot feed, crickets to the fish and the blah blah blah, right? Like communism will just go crazy to subvert you from being ingenious. So yeah, I
I,
think we just need to keep our ingenuity. That's it.
yeah, I mean, I guess what I'd say is kind of ending it on a bright note is that we have seen a coordinated global effort to basically decimate the population's ability to produce food, and we saw for
That's
like
sad. Yeah.
we saw a coordinated decentralized resistance that actually forced the EU to back off in large part just a few, I think it's just been a few weeks ago that
Well, the fires are happening in France and Netherlands now, right? It's insanity. It's still happening, right? It's not. I don't think it's settled. Right? It's still insanity.
but I guess the positive is that like we're reaching a tipping point in terms of awareness by the greater population that not only are these policies terrible, but they're enacted. Again, if you're if you're awake and reading between the lines, these are not like a series of. It's not a coincidence that all these countries are enacting these non like on their face nonsensical policies. There's thought and coordination behind them. So to see like resistance actually forcing these governments, these especially in the EU, they've been able to basically get their way with with their populations for a long time in a lot of different manners. But to see organized resistance to force them to back down is, I think, a really positive sign in the way things are going.
It's a positive little bit. What I find very cynical is how it reveals that what every European country that voted for somebody that toes the line until it's revealed that like there's any kind of looseness and alternatives. Like, whoa, what's been going on after World War II in Europe?
Just
Right? Like it shows you like weird stuff like that where like,
the
wait a
EU
minute, these
tried to
countries are not independent.
yeah these the EU tried to, I don't know if they ended up going through with it, but the EU was threatening to remove member states like veto power, which still is a token power, like
Yeah, yeah.
almost.
And Poland has a veto, I think. Poland has
Yeah,
a
yeah.
veto.
Like it's to the point where, and again, in so many other matters, they don't even have like there's not even a vote. It's just like pushed down. But they were going to remove even one of the last vestiges of independence from these member states because a couple of countries didn't want to go through with funding the Ukraine war any further. So yeah, I mean it's crazy. But anyway,
This
well
is where you see, yeah. Yeah. What I want to suggest, look into Open Society and Malik Brown. This is a guy who I fingered as people donating $6 million through his Beeple income.
mhm.
His money came from Metacoven. Metacoven got into an IPO scam in Singapore, along with a Dogecoin exchange robbery in Canada. So what I'm seeing is the same money getting laundered to the same guys who are now telling us to go eat their fucking crickets because these guys are linked to the WEF, they're linked to the Chatham House, all these green projects. And what we're seeing is a broke Britain creating all these rackets just to, again, siphon the whole world into funding some islands that are just like sinking from a lack of economic activity. It's pretty simple, right? And it's all hidden up. I know that, and I argue the Chinese are even just a smoke screen, just to have some agents that aren't British to get caught for this shit. So they got caught.
Yeah,
So
well,
yeah, all roads lead to England. That's my London. There you go. All roads lead to London.
well,
My
there's
my
yeah, I
takeaway
mean,
from this stuff.
yeah, there's a ton of different like rabbit holes you can shoot down on that stuff, but it's certainly
Yeah,
been
the main one.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a certainly a fun conversation though, chatting with you today. Yeah,